Hello everyone, my name is Jesse. Welcome to VGM Vibes 3, a newish series where I dive into certain themings and biomes and all these other kind of vibes from video games that I enjoy. It's a little different from my reaction series where it's a kind of a mixed bag of stuff that I personally experienced, or stuff that I know about for sure, or songs that I've discovered here on the channel, or games I've played, and suggestions from other users as well. This episode is a bit of a mixed bag in a lot of different ways. This is a lot of user suggestion, a lot of my picks, of course, and some stuff that may not even be from Aquatic themed levels at all. So what I mean by that is what is the Vibe series? Now that we're getting into the third episode, we're going to start to really, decipher what I mean by the series. And to me, Aquatic, obviously, first thing that comes to mind is water levels, stuff that belongs to a biome of water, that kind of thing, oceans, etc., underwater. But as you'll see in this video, there's going to be some stuff that isn't even relating to water whatsoever, that just have the vibe of an aquatic sound. And the first one will be that. So I just want to, preface that so people are like, what is this doing here? But I'm actually excited for this batch that I collected because it's different game genres, a bunch of different composers, different years, just like the whole spectrum of water. And we're going to be starting off with a game that is, in that regard, not have anything to do with water whatsoever. And we're going to start that right now. So this first song we're going to be featuring has nothing to do with water whatsoever as far as I know. I didn't do too much research on it. It's a game called Famicom Detective Club, The Girl Who Stands Behind, and I think it might have been a remake from an earlier game, like in the 80s. I kind of skimmed the Wikipedia, and I think it's a visual novel. I could be wrong about this. But the requester that sent the song to me also sent a lot of the Ace Attorney songs that are on my channel. So, anywho, this is, what is the song called? This is In Front of the School Gate. Fun fact, this is a song I reacted to on the channel, and it was the first time that I ever put on two pairs of sunglasses for it because it was that cool. This song is the epitome of chill, ambient, loop, like those like long homework edits. This is kind of one of those perfect songs for that. It's like a mixture of lo-fi, jazz, and everything. But the topic at hand here is aquatic themes. Now, of course, later on we're going to be talking about specific water levels and all that, but this is, now that you've heard this song, you can kind of see where this series will end up going and where I think the potential of the series can, get much larger, because you can hear stuff that reminds you of a certain vibe and can put you there. For example, when I hear these songs as reactions, I have no context. I'm just guessing, and sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's correct. Usually it's wrong, but at least it's my reaction at that time. And I distinctly remember hearing this. I'm like, this sounds really, I don't know. It feels like I'm in this sort of aquatic space, and they have these arpeggios all over the song that remind me of bubbles, the little and it just has the thing that I would normally associate aquatic themes with, which is like the long synths, the kind of drony long sound, and that's why it's here. So I feel like this song deserves so much more attention. Still to this day doesn't have that many views, and I think it's kind of one of these underrated things as far as games and sounds. This song is amazing to me, and I asked the requester why they chose it, and they said, I chose that song because I liked how catchy and chill that music was. Also, I picked it because it was one of my favorite tracks from that game, and I picked that game because I like detective type visual novel video games similar to Ace Attorney. Nice. And mind you, this was, to best of my knowledge, composed by Kenji Yamamoto, a name that may or may not appear later in this video, which I think is very interesting. So yeah, that's the beginning of my episode 3, the Famicom Detective Club. Yeah, sorry, I don't know a whole lot about the song game. I just know that the song really put me into this water infused thought that I couldn't escape from, and I think it's a perfect way to begin the rest of this video. Next on my list is The Rain, formerly known as Purple, from Risk of Rain 2. Another song that, to my knowledge, has nothing to do with water. Maybe just a song, maybe just a game title, Risk of Rain. But this is another one where I couldn't help but avoid the thought of the aquatic vibe here. It's like almost bathed in it, no pun intended. And so much so that when I first heard this song was a huge deal on my channel, by the way. It was heavily requested and just a massive song that Chris Christodoulou like totally cooked on that one, taking the ideas of Prince and Purple Rain and all that. To my knowledge, I haven't played this game yet, but to my knowledge, this is, I think you're just like floating on a planet or something. I don't know actually, but feel free to tell me. But the vibes of the song are so aquatic to me. The synths, the pulsating, the slow beat, all that stuff. And I do remember that it reminded me of like a lot of songs. If you watch that reaction, like my pinned comment, I gave like suggestions on like 3 or 4 different songs of other like known bands or something, and a lot of those are all like aquatic sounding as well. Like I remember one of my favorite songs still that I listen to is called Underwater Love. I don't know how to say his last name, from Jerome Ismaiah, I think. And it reminded me of that. And I was debating on putting these 2 songs here because people are going to be like, well, I thought this was going to be like all water themes. Well, I'm explaining that, So I think there is a charm in hearing stuff that isn't necessarily associated with where it comes from, I guess. But with that being said, of course, like the rest of the video will definitely include stuff. I just wanted to give the first of all, I wanted to talk about the song because why wouldn't I? The song was such a big deal. But I just wanted to kind of expand the horizons because people get so like when they suggest stuff to me, or they're just like for example, they thought that this episode was going to be like underwater themes, which I never even said that. You know what I mean? Their brain goes to one thing, and this whole point is to kind of expand that. So the requester said some words as to why they chose this song, and he says, I actually had heard this track before I heard Purple Rain itself. I'm going to talk about that actually. But one day at work, somebody played Purple Rain, and I immediately recognized the tune from Risk of Rain 2. Not sure exactly why I like it. Maybe it's because I'm a sucker for progressively adding instruments as the song goes on, or double layering the same tune with multiple instruments to accentuate it. I'm not sure. As to why I chose to send it to you, I'm not entirely sure either. I'm a simple man. I liked the song, found your channel, saw you hadn't heard it yet. The request song donation price was cheap, so I picked it and sent it to you. Straightforward. Yeah, so that is actually like a really, really cool thing, is the discovery of music. Right? Like they heard Purple Rain from Prince after hearing this one. I think that's a really cool thing, is like the opening up those avenues and why VGM is so cool. And I mean, in my case, I heard Purple Rain, of course, before this, but I guess now I'll be moving on to like actual aquatic stuff. But I really wanted to open with these 2 because to me, in my head, despite where they're playing, I'm sure they fit into what it is. I think now we can start seeing like what the Vibes series is going to entail from here on out, but of course, including what actually belongs there. So, Chris Christodoulou, Risk of Rain 2. I love this song to death. I've heard it so many times, and we must continue with the list. The next song on my list is a song called Subsurface from a game called Redout. It's the only song I've done on the channel, and I haven't really heard of it since or before. It was kind of like a one-time thing, and I do remember the composers, two of the composers commented on that channel. Really cool. Apparently, it's like a just from like the footage I've seen, it's like a really really fast racing game. You kind of look like you're on spaceships. I'm not really sure, but it just seems incredibly fast. And I've seen where this plays. From what I've gathered, it's a place called. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It's a place called Europa, and it's like a moon on Jupiter. But also, it's kind of strange because like you go underwater, the name of the song, and you can see you're like under the ocean floor. You can see the ripples above you and all that. And the thing about this one is, I wanted to feature different aquatic stuff, not just a certain tempo, not just a certain, feel. This one is probably the fastest. Well, for sure the fastest in this video, but this song is one of the fastest that I've had, like on the Auditorium. Period. It's so incredibly fast, and it matches the speed of the game, the looks of the game, and it just has this adrenaline feel, and while still keeping that kind of water vibe, I guess, to it. In this case, the synthesizers are pulsating in a kind of bubbly way, to put it lightly. And there is, I wrote that it reminds me of Fury. If you're familiar with that game, imagine Fury, like that sound and that punch, times like 10 as far as speed, like they crank the speed on Fury. And this is what the requester said, if I can find it. It has very good parody with the racetrack that it's for, which is set on Europa. The scenery of ice and ocean juxtaposed with the futuristic buildings and racetrack dipping in and out of the water always stuck in my mind. And having most of the track underwater as well, it does a good job in selling the sense of speed and how vast it can feel. Hearing the audio of your ship rumble as you breach into the water for a segment of track as the song picks up is just so fun. I can't really say that listening to the song itself has a water theme that it explicitly evokes, besides maybe the oops, I lost my place, arbitration of the synths. But for me, it's absolutely one of the best paired songs to a track in the game. I could hear the water kind of feel into this one, but this one is definitely all about like the speed, and I'm not sure if I've even had like a racing game featured on the Vibe series, so I wanted to show love to that too. And I think there's a sequel to this game too. I could be wrong, or they're working on it. But yeah, Redout is. It seems like I've heard people in the comments say it's like a predecessor to a game called Wipeout, which I have not heard of. But if you're familiar with that, then maybe you'll see like what is entailing. But anyways, Subsurface from Redout, super fast and awesome. Up next, we have Etrian Odyssey 3, also Etrian Odyssey Nexus. This is Waterwoods of the Submarine Ridge. Now, this is what I would consider an aquatic theme of darkness and kind of scary. The depths, right? The thing about water stages and anything relating to water is like there's so many ways it can go. It can sound delightful and light, and like you're close to the surface, it could sound really muffled and reverbed and that kind of underwater thing. And then there's just this, which I feel is kind of jarring, and it almost sounds like a horror song. If I can combine like a Halloween sort of vibe with water, I think this would be it. Now, mind you, I don't know what it looks like in game, but when I first heard this, it's kind of like a jump scare of a song. It has like 3 phases. This starts off with this arpeggio that is cascading left and right. Suzu Koshiro, by the way, which needs no introduction. But, has got this arpeggio, and then that immediately has the first aquatic sound to it. And then it kind of starts doing these stabbing rhythms, which makes you feel like you're going deeper and deeper into the depths. And starts to have these sort of echolocation type of sounds They remind me of a submarine, which is fitting for the title. And then it goes into this like third phase, and it just sounds like we're just going deeper and deeper. And that's the only way I can describe this song. It sounds a little unpleasant, but I really, really enjoy Etrian Odyssey's music. It's very unique, kind of weird. I like that though. It's just like a lot of character in it. Very dynamic song. And what I like about this series is that you can hear it in multiple ways. I feel like, I know there's at least 2 versions of the song. There might be more. There might be a super range. I could be wrong about that. And I also featured Etrian Odyssey in the first episode of Forest themes. But the thing about Etrian Odyssey is I think there's a few aquatic themes that I've heard, and they're all good. First of all, I've heard nothing bad from Etrian Odyssey yet. And it was hard choosing one, but I remember this one specifically because it feels like a movement, it feels like a story, as opposed to just a song. And I think for that, it really, really stuck out. And I don't know, I really like it, but it feels so weird. Like I shouldn't like it. And I should mention that the overall sound quality, like the production value of this song is superb. And for that, it has to be here. Next on my list is a game called Crypt of the Necrodancer, and the song is called Deep Sea Bass. And I'm pretty sure this is a boss theme for Coral Riff. So there's obviously a lot of like play on words and all that. Before I get into why the song is cool, I discovered Crypt of the Necrodancer here on the channel not too long ago, and everything I've heard has been pretty amazing. It's got a very danceable soundtrack. There's a lot of punch, a lot of bass, a lot of rhythm, cool stuff. I think it's actually like a rhythm game, if I'm correct. Like a rhythm. Let's just call it a rhythm game. It's like a music-based game. And in this one, you are, as you can see, fighting a literal bass. So I'm guessing the humor is, there's like a lot of underlying humor in the game too, like a lot of puns and stuff, just based off of that. Now, on this side of the aquatic themes, now we're getting into more of like the funky, the danceable stuff, the high energy stuff. So we're covering as much ground. Is ground appropriate here? We're covering as much depth as possible with these aquatic themes. And this one, immediately off the bat, the bass is going nuts. There's no denying that was intended, right? Deep sea bass boss. So of course it starts off with like popping and slapping of the bass and super funky. Danny B really knows how to really make you move, and I really love, like, pretty much the whole song has that feel of water. It's smooth, right? It's got these kind of up, like these waves. I guess if I were to compare it to something, it's sort of like waves, and just the way it moves, the way it feels. And I remember hearing it and just kind of being like blown away and what's going on. And then I find out it's like all these puns and it's an actual bass. But the requester, oh, and I did mention that similar to the Etrian one with this kind of echolocation, I feel like this song uses a lot of, it feels like, I'm not sure though, but it feels like there's a lot of sonar type of sounds, and they turn the sonar into like a kind of an instrument, and they added some effects to it. I could be just hearing things, but it sounds like that. Like there's kind of like submarine type sounds. The requester says, for me, or why they picked it for me, it's because the synth melody playing in the background makes it feel like I'm totally underwater, with that little echoey-ness to it. I think that's what I was just talking about. With the little synth pops giving it underwater bubble vibes. And that bass in the background just giving me some go with the flow feels. So basically they're explaining that the whole thing feels aquatic to them. And yes, it's very aquatic. Imagine, water meets Bootsy Collins, that kind of thing, meets Victor Wooten, meets Jacob Pastorius. I've seen this fight. This is the only footage I've seen. I've seen this fight. It's like a lot of flashing, like the towels are moving, and and all that. But either way, Crypt of the Necrodancer, a game that's, I feel like 90% music based. They knocked it out of the park with this one, and the whole puns and everything. I really like that it's not often you hear a kind of really danceable, funky type thing when it comes to music, although there might be something like that later. So it's really cool to keep hearing different areas that water can go. And this is one from Crypt of the Necrodancer, Deep Sea Bass. The next song in the Aquatic vibes is Crashed Frigate Orphean from Metroid Prime. This was a big video when I released it, but also was chosen by you guys. So before I get into this one, like I said before, when I started the series, it was mostly just me, stuff that I know and all that, but I wanted to get input from you guys, and I started some polls, what needs to be featured in this video, something that just screams Aquatic. And this one was, there was two on that poll. There was a winner, and then there was second place. This was second place. And I chose second place, just, I just wanted to hear it because I wanted to hear more Metroid. This was the second song I've ever heard from Metroid. And I've heard it quite a bit since I've seen where it plays. And man, people were so nostalgic about this game, and they're like, you need to play it and all that. Also, Kenji Yamamoto, who, if you remember from the first song we heard. And this one apparently had another composer, Koichi Kuma. I think there was like a collaborative effort for Metroid Prime. So I've seen what I think how this plays. I never played this game, but I've seen what I liked about it before I even talk about the song and what makes it Aquatic. I really liked what I saw, and it was like a really intense moment, like a very tunnel and enclosed area. I could be wrong about this, so please correct me. It was like very action based, and then as soon as that part clears, you kind of like enter a new area, and then this song plays. So it's like a big calming new area. And I know it's not totally rare, but it's also not too common for music to change within the same level. And I think that's why this song also hits that much harder, because I try to ignore the song that was going before it, because I'm just trying to get the feel for it. But it was it was like intense and moving and all this stuff, and all of a sudden, this turns on, and you feel like it's just very mysterious now. And I think that's why this song probably resonated with a lot of people. It's like this new section. It definitely feels underwater. So we talked about the dancing stuff, the speed stuff, all that. Now we're talking underwater. And man, does this song sound underwater as hell. I heard it for the first time a couple weeks ago, and now here I am. I've heard it a handful of times and really wanted to experience it. This is one of those songs where it's definitely on the ambient side. You could probably go to sleep with this kind of song. It's got that sense of mystery, a little bit of depth where it almost sounds like it's kind of scary in a way. You don't know what's coming. And man, everything about this song is just probably the epitome of Aquatic. I can see why this was heavily voted on. And I think just based on the comments that I saw, because remember, I have no experience with Metroid at all. Based on the comments that I saw, I feel like people cannot talk about Metroid Prime without mentioning the music, and vice versa. Like, you talk about Metroid Prime's music, of course, it totally goes hand in hand with the game and the experience. And that makes me excited to want to hear more, because I've only heard two songs, this one and the Ridley theme, which are totally two opposites of energy. But this one, when I heard the song, mind you, at the time when I heard it, I didn't have footage. I just had the logo. And I was like, dude, this sounds extremely, extremely underwater. Even though I knew it was going to be underwater, it has that feel. So I think coming into this video, you would expect to have this in there, and I totally agree. So even though I'm totally new to it and it's very fresh for me, I totally get it, and I'm glad you guys picked it because this is what it's about. You know, it's not just like a certain vibe; it's like the whole aquatic vibe. And this one is what a lot of people, I would assume, their first pick when it comes to something like that. So yeah, Metroid Prime, Crash, Frigate Orpheon, incredible. And now we head into the Sega Genesis, the 16-bit, or the Mega Drive if you're across the pond. I just really wanted to speak about Shinobi. Again, they were featured in my first episode of the Forest Themes. I love this game's soundtrack, so anytime I get to talk about it, it's great. This is Whirlwind, a fantastic song from an iconic stage from an iconic game. This is the second time in the game where you're on this side-scroller moving sort of parallax thing, the first one being horseback. Now we're surfing. We're just straight up, this is like the coolest thing ever for like a 10-year-old boy, really, or anyone, really. You're surfing, you're throwing ninja stars, you're fighting a boss, a hard boss, by the way. You're jumping, it's like the coolest thing ever, you know? But the thing about Whirlwind is the sound. The sound of this song is just audio bliss. It has some of the best sounding bass I've ever heard, and some of the best lead synth sounds ever. There's a channel here on YouTube. Hopefully I remember to link it, but you can see the oscilloscope of how the song was made, and man, it's just, you can really appreciate it when it's broken down scientifically like that. This, now we're getting into one of these aquatic themes is groove. You know, now we're I think this song, it just has this magic to it where I feel like if you hear it, and I mean this sincerely, I think if you hear it, you can't help but like it. It's so good. I'd be concerned if you didn't like this song. I think something would be up, like something's off. But in reality, just like the whole cool factor of it, the surfing, the side-scrolling part, or the fast-moving side-scrolling 2D section, the jumping, the song. You know, one thing I don't remember if the Sega does this, at least in like newer generation consoles. In this game, or in this section of the stage, the sound effects actually like interrupt the song. I don't know if that was a common thing or if I'm just misremembering, but some of the sound effects, I feel like that's just like an old gaming thing, you know, like if the sound took over, I guess, memory space. So the best way, in my opinion, is to hear this outside of the game. Of course, it sounds amazing in the game, but like really enjoying and experiencing it outside of the game, you can just really listen to the bass. It's fantastic. Also, another little thing about this song is that I quote-unquote reacted to it because I was watching another YouTube channel called Sega Lord X. I talk about it more in depth in my reaction, but I was watching him cover this game, and then I heard that song. I was like, wait, what is that? And then I had to hear the whole thing, and then I did. And then I played the game, and it's pretty difficult, by the way. Anyways, Whirlwind, the epitome of cool, Joe Musashi, ninjas, water, surfboards, incredible sound. I'm not even exaggerating. The sound of the bass and the percussion, and of course the creamiest leak you've ever heard in your life. Whirlwind is incredible. Up next on this list was the winner of my poll for the aquatic themes. This is Sonic 3 Hydrocity, otherwise known as Hydro City for a lot of people. It's like a big debate, and it's hilarious to me. Another debate is something I don't want to dive too much into because I think it's just always going to be talked about, is like the whole involvement of the composers on this one. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of rumors, Michael Jackson, all this stuff. That's for another day. I don't want to focus on that. I just want to focus on the song here. And man, so Sonic 3 is quite an anomaly in my life. I grew up with Sonic, at least I say that, but now I think about it, maybe not so much. I know all the first game. I know the soundtrack. I know 2, but 3 I never completed. And when I uploaded the video of me reacting to the song, people were telling me, that this is like the second stage, and I was kind of embarrassed. I'm like, oh, that means I pretty much did not experience 3 as much as I thought I did. Because I only remember, which I now know, is the first level, the one with the steel pan and all that. So apparently this is the very next thing that follows it. Hydrosity is, man, you know, this is kind of in line, which apparently it's called New Jack Swing. It's a genre here. And I have to admit, even though I was under the assumption for the longest time that this game still had the same composer from the first 2, because it sounds like Sonic to me. Like it has that DNA. I figured they didn't start changing Sonic composers until like much later, but it shows how much I know. And man, I gotta admit, like the 2 Sonic 3 songs that I've heard, this one and Big Arm, they sound like Sonic to me. You know, I personally wouldn't have guessed that it was a different composer. Anyways, this one was voted, and this won. The other one being, what was it? I think it was Metroid Prime. But this one won, and it was actually requested by Husky by the Geek. And man, another fun fact about the song, before I talk about the aquatic nature of it, this is the first time, apparently, I don't know this, I learned a lot in this video when I reacted to it, that this was the first time that Sonic started to split their zones, or their acts, I should say. And, you know, learning that much later is like, I kind of wish they did that all the time. I wasn't aware that they did that, but it was actually really cool. So each stage has 2 acts, or each zone has 2 acts, Act 1 and Act 2. And this song is split into 2. It's Act 1 and Act 2. So the first one is extremely, like, right out of the gate, just hits you with a groove. You're dancing, you're like, oh damn, okay, we're kind of grooving along, and it's just filled with this liveliness. And it's probably stuff like this that inspired, you know, the song we talked about earlier, like Crypt of the Necrodancers, in that kind of same sort of feel of we're grooving. It sounds extremely, for lack of a better word, just cool as hell. And while I will admit, as far as like an aquatic feel, I would say that this one, Act 1, doesn't really sound that aquatic to me in any capacity. I just think it sounds like to me it sounds like a song that was maybe didn't have a place or left over and then just kind of put it here. Whereas the second act, that to me has the sound of what we're looking at here. And it has more of that aquatic sound. It has a little more bubbly, has more reverb on it, and also the second act is just incredible. Like, I've listened to the song so many times since that video, and man, the second one just really goes all in. They add new melodies, a lot more memorable stuff, and I even heard that the Sonic Mania versions are pretty I heard the Sonic Mania versions too, but I heard hearsay just from the comments that the composer wanted to pretty much keep them almost identical because they were basically perfect. And honestly, like, hearing that now, I could totally see that. Hearing the original 2 songs, I would be quite intimidated to even touch them whatsoever. So, yeah. I should mention that I didn't know this in the video when I watched it, but between Act 1 and Act 2, there's like a tiny little mini boss in between that sort of like takes away from the song, because it's just like this kind of generic, random, like 10-second boss theme. But in a way, it kind of like brings you back when the second act hits, because now it's, I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting. How it doesn't just go like directly from 1 to 2. It's like 1 scary music and then this phase 2 or Act 2. Yeah, that's Sonic Hydrosity. Sonic 3 is a very interesting thing, you know, both in people not knowing how to pronounce Hydrosity or Hydrocity. I don't really care. You guys can debate all you want. And then there's the whole Michael Jackson thing. There's at least like 10 people I'm seeing as far as composers, but they just say like a sound team. Again, I don't want to get into it, but I feel like whenever Sonic 3 is mentioned, I feel like people just have to like crack this egg open. But for what it's worth, the music is incredible, and people thought that there's no way I can make a video about aquatic themes without mentioning Hydrosity. So here we are. Up next, we're going to be talking about the opposing console, the Nintendo. And man, this song, Donkey Kong Country Aquatic Ambience, this song was overwhelmingly requested. As soon as I even mentioned the word that I'm doing aquatic episode, the first thing, I'm not even kidding, the first thing people suggested was Aquatic Ambience. So much so that I didn't even put it into the poll. It was just that. Like, if you make a video about aquatic themes, no-brainer type of thing. And I hadn't heard it. So when I did react to it, man, it just was like, oh, okay, I get it. This song, first of all, one thing I have to give David Wise props on, and something I really want to talk about in this segment right here, is his percussion. And I think you guys know what I'm talking about when I'm going to talk about the percussion to this song as to why it sounds aquatic. The whole song sounds like every keyboard, everything he used was like submerged, and he's just kind of like pressing buttons, underwater. And this whole song sounds pretty much exactly like this. Even this image, which is beautiful, by the way, it still has this sort of mystery and kind of scary nature to it. It's kind of dark. Looks like we're pretty low in the ocean floor. It seems like we're really far away from sunlight hitting us. And I've seen footage of where this plays, and it has this kind of darkness and almost like spooky vibe to it. But Aquatic Ambience to me is similar to Metroid Prime's, where the whole thing sounds like the epitome of underwater and into the unknown and all these things. But the thing what I love about this is that what David kind of like seemed to have nailed is every instrument sounds as though is aquatic, besides maybe the wood block. But even the wood block fits completely. I don't know how, but it does. Everything, all the reverb, all the crazy drony long chords, the percussion, of course, the echo, everything just sounds like not muffled, but distant and far away. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example here. Maybe this little dot in between them both, like just something far, in the background, like you're approaching it. And I feel like this is one of those nostalgic tracks, and not only is that just like a David thing, but I think a lot of Donkey Kong Country, like everything I've heard from Donkey Kong Country, which was also featured in the first episode with forest themes, it's just has this nostalgic value. And mind you, I didn't grow up with Nintendo, but I know when it existed when I was growing up, because I was buying PlayStation games and stuff. But I knew, of course, you've heard of like Donkey Kong, everyone's heard of Donkey Kong. So my nostalgia to it is, oh yeah, I remember that stuff from back in the day, but I didn't experience it. I'm experiencing it as a grown man, but I can totally hear, because here's the thing. When I get to my top song here, when that time comes in this video, you're gonna understand why I like this one. It's the same feeling that you probably had, that when you grew up with it, it's stuck with you the entire time and has not gone anywhere. So even though I'm hearing the song super late, not on its original console, not in its original experience, I think I can understand as to why this is such an iconic song for many people, and probably the number one thing they think of when it comes to an aquatic song, besides maybe a few more that are coming up. And one thing I will have to give credit to Nintendo is, man, I've been hearing a lot of Nintendo lately, and they seem to have really kind of mastered the whole, at least in this era, the whole earworm and memorable, long-lasting melody. So before I move on, the requester, longtime homie to the channel, Garvin, this is why they requested it. For me, it's one of those Tracks I find incredibly relaxing. Oh, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, it's super relaxing. Always been a favorite of mine for the more chill playlist. DK music in general just has a special kind of groove to it that I really dig. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I think the word vibe in general can apply to so many Donkey Kong songs. And David Weiss, too. I don't know if I've heard any David Weiss outside of DK, but man, that guy's talented. Anyways, that is Aquatic Ambience from Donkey Kong Country. I feel like this was a no-brainer. Once people suggested it, so I can't even begin to tell you how many people suggested it. It definitely feels like a no-brainer and probably one of the highlights to this video. Just like we got 2 Sega Genesis tracks, now we get 2 Nintendo tracks. And man, Dire Docks from Super Mario 64 was a whole experience I can't even describe. This to me, before I even get into anything else, this to me is kind of the sound. The vibe here, besides Aquatic, is nostalgia. Man, nostalgia. Like, I don't know what it is. I guess it's just like the instrument choice or something, but this song, I did not experience the Nintendo, so this has a lot of similarities to Donkey Kong and what I said. But this is Mario now. We're talking the most iconic game series in the world. And, you know, when I heard this song, there's a lot to say about it. There's a couple things I have to say, but learning about it is what makes me excited. So similar to Aquatic Ambience, this one was also heavily suggested that it like surpassed the poll. There was no poll. It just, people were like, put this song in the video. And man, like overwhelmingly, maybe even more so than Aquatic Ambience. I feel like they're like brothers, you know, like they just go hand in hand. This one, to me, not only just sounds nostalgic, but it sounds to me like childhood. And I'll elaborate a little further on that. But first, let's talk about the actual what's going on here. I've seen a little bit of footage from where this is playing, and it seems like there's just like a lot of diving underwater, and then like you are actually you actually go on land and walk, or like on these kind of oh god, what's the word I'm thinking of? This whatever, you go up to the surface and you walk, and you do some platforming, which brings me to my next point. This is one of the this is a dynamic song. So you hear the song one way when you're swimming, and once you reach the surface, the percussion kicks in very lightly, and I really love that. I really love dynamics in video games soundtracks, but also it doesn't take away from the song, but it definitely adds a whole bunch. But when it goes back away, it doesn't feel like it's missing anything. It's just always complete at all times. This one, what was I going to say? Oh, Koji Kondo. Yes, I learned a lot in that video when I reacted to this song. Koji Kondo, to me, growing up, I always thought he was just the guy, the Legend of Zelda guy, you know? And then come to find out, as I'm on this journey of hearing songs for the first time, that Koji Kondo is like the Nintendo guy, like the Mario guy, the Zelda guy. I was like, oh, you know, I had no idea. And man, it's really coming together. Like, it's really making a lot of sense. Like, this guy's, you know, above and beyond as far as composer. This song has this, of course, aquatic quality to it, but it's just so childlike and beautiful, I guess. You know, it just reminds me of so much of my youth. But here's the funny part, and work with me here. I have no nostalgia to this game, to the series. I grew up with a PlayStation and the Sega Genesis. I am the opposite consumer. One day I'll play these games, but you know, up until now, no experience with it. And yet, it's still nostalgic. And you may ask, why? Well, it's kind of a silly reason, but it's a reason. I mentioned this in the video too, but if you've ever been on TikTok, there is a pretty reoccurring popular fad where they show like slideshows of nostalgia. And in the background is Dire Dire Docks. So this whole time, before I even knew what the song was, I've been associating my memories and nostalgia with Dire Dire Docks. And I'll show you an example of what I've experienced. So while you experience the game, this is my version of like how I experience nostalgia. And you'll understand stuff like this, right? I haven't even seen this video. I just pulled it up. Ask Jeeves. Hell yeah, I remember that. I don't know what those are called, but yeah. That was a book. Oh my god. You see what I mean? You see how the song's attached to it? Hell yeah, I want one of those. So whoever decided to put this song as like the, oh my god, as the like nostalgia apex, they did an amazing job. Man, this is making me kind of sad actually. So hearing it for the first time, like on the channel properly, was a really nice thing because I could hear the aquatic nature it had, and the symbolism and everything. And like I said, it was so popular that it transcended past the poll. So Dire Dire Docks from Super Mario 64, one of the very few songs I've heard from the Nintendo 64, and I'm glad it was this one. And I'm glad it has so many nostalgic vibes to it. I can make a whole other vibe series on nostalgia, but I'm definitely glad that I heard this. And of course, I was going to put Dire Dire Docks in here. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Crystal Teardrops. This song is so special that it gets a video. That's part of my playthrough. And man, although the song isn't entirely connected to an aquatic stage, there's definitely a lot of water here. It's part of the underground caverns, as you can see. Damn, this game is beautiful. But the thing about this song, it's probably going to be distracting, but the thing about this song is, first of all, it caught me right away as soon as I heard it. It was one of the last songs I heard before I started playing the game. And man, it's so, the whole soundtrack is amazing, but this one, it stood out, right? It's got this like underground old school hip hop feel to it with the like reverb drums, and the beat really stands out. But the first two notes of the song, you're already like, okay, yeah, this already has like an aquatic feel to it. Just beautifully like sprinkled chords throughout it. But the thing I like about this song is that it's a mixture of a couple of things you don't normally hear. We have like this hip hop thing, this aquatic thing, and then this like classical thing, right? We have this sort of vampiric Dracula harpsichord going and playing these pedal tone notes that just bring this thing to life. And let me see what the requester said about why they chose it or why they like it. It's kind of a long one, so bear with. I would say I chose Crystal Teardrops for a few reasons. The first and most simple reason is due to it being my favorite song from Symphony of the Night, tied along with Wandering Ghost. The song wasn't the one that I truly appreciated during my first playthrough of the game, funny enough. I liked it, but I didn't rank it anywhere near the top like I do now. It wasn't until my third playthrough that the song just clicked, and I've adored it ever since. I remember thinking, I don't know what was wrong with me. The song is just perfect. Well, before I move on with that, it's just funny how sometimes you just like appreciate things more after the first time, you know? You just need to like let it marinate. I think knowing that I wanted to see how another person reacted to the song on the first listen. Also, when I found your channel, I noticed you had already reacted to songs like Wandering Ghost and Tragic Prince, so I wanted to request songs from the game that I both liked and were a bit more chill, mellow in comparison to what you already had heard from the game. I felt Crystal Teardrops and Rainbow Cemetery were a good fit for that. Oh, it's another dope song. I've listened to Crystal Teardrops so much outside of the game. To me, it's a great song to chill to, especially on a gray or rainy day. To me, it fits the vibe of that type of atmosphere well. Glad I got the opportunity to request and share it with you. Yeah. Crystal Teardrops is, I mean, any chance I get to talk about Symphony of the Night and its incredible soundtrack, another game I played because of the soundtrack. It's just, you know, you know. Oh man, I wish I can. I still need to finish this one day. Like I shouldn't have put a video here because it's distracting me too. But yeah, that is Crystal Teardrops from Symphony of the Night. Damn, dude, 1997 was a crazy year for games. But that is Michiru Yamane, legend. Composed by Pascal Stifel with the official remix of Adolescence F, which is this version. We have the return of A Hat in Time. This is Clock Towers Beneath the Sea, an official remix in the game. This is not the original, but I really feel like I needed to talk about the official remix. It's my preferred version, although they're both fantastic. They sound almost identical. But in this version that we're listening to here from Adolescence F, there's like this... It's basically the same idea with just different instruments. Now we have this more of a horn and classical section that just really fits. It really fits, you know. A Hat in Time is a game that I've talked about so many times. I discovered it here. I played it just on a whim because it was cheap, and I was like, whoa, dude, this game is one of the coolest games I've ever played. It's an action platformer, collect-a-thon thing. And man, it's just... the whole game, you know, the controls are amazing, the humor, everything. But the soundtrack is like on another level. I could be wrong about this. Let me know when this version plays in the game, because you can unlock tracks in the game, and I think you can choose if they play in a certain section. I don't remember if it plays like officially in the game normally, or if you have to select it. Anyways, Clock Towers Beneath the Sea plays during a kind of special section of the game called Time Rifts, where look almost exactly like that. It's like a deviation from the game. Each world has their own time rifts where it becomes these sections of like intense platforming. And that's what makes it so cool, is because the vibe of these songs are very mellow and chill. You can fall asleep to this, but the action on screen is the complete opposite. So I feel like it's made to like calm you down from the intense platforming. I feel like this section of the game is where a lot of people, like the beginner style of player and intermediate, will start to get frustrated because there really is some intense stuff here, you know, as far as like precise jumping and all that. So if you like all that and wall jumps, then you'll love it. But I can see how these can be kind of frustrating for some people. There's also, I guess there's 3 versions that I know of for this song. There's Clock Towers Beneath the Sea, the official remix, this one, and then there's like, of course, the scooter version, which sounds very synthwave. That's when she's on her scooter and everything has like a beat and you can kind of dance to it. I can never get bored of talking about Hat in Time music, but this is, for me, although I've never ranked the whole soundtrack yet, maybe one day, for me, Clock Towers Beneath the Sea is like in the top. Probably spoiler, but like in the top 5. It's such an amazing song, and you might have heard it before, maybe in some like YouTube videos, but I think it's extremely underrated. And anytime I get to talk about it, and of course, it's underwater, you know, it's the whole like vibe of being in this, I guess, under the sea, and it totally fits that. It has a sort of the same vibe as the Metroid Prime one, maybe Aquatic Ambience from Donkey Kong, the 2 that we featured. It's sort of in that vein, but a lot more calming, as opposed to Aquatic Ambience has a sort of menacing sort of calm. This is just pure calm. I love the song. I can never stop talking about it, and I love it. It's such a great game. Play A Hat in Time. We're now entering the top 3 of what I consider the aquatic themes. And when I mean top 3, I'm not like specifically ranking these in order. It's just these next 3 songs are what inspired this video. And that's true with every other vibes from now on and in the past. It's you can expect like the last 3, and especially the first song, to be what inspired the whole entire video. And Aquatic Ruin Zone is absolutely one of those songs. Second time we feature Sonic. This is Sonic 2. And a game I played, and this is, now we're talking like you know, my personal history with video game music, imagine hearing this. This is where I can relate to a lot of you. I heard this when I was like, what, 6, 7 something years old, and hearing, you know, down, 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 that just these synth sounds, these lead tones, and just falling in love with like video game music very early. And this is one of my earliest memories of VGM, which is pretty crazy. And I feel like it's kind of interesting though. It's like, I guess in a similar fashion to Hydrosity, is it kind of almost doesn't sound aquatic per se. Like there's nothing really like screaming aquatic to me. I just know that it belongs to an aquatic zone, so you know, I can't like remove that part from the bias of it. But for example, like if I recall correctly, it's been a while since I played this whole stage, you can pretty much play it above water. Like if you end up in the water, it's bad and you want to climb up out of it. But like a lot of it is just like the ruin on top and like the greenery and the buildings. And obviously if you like go down, obviously it's a bad thing. But anyways, so even though it doesn't sound like very aquatic or anything to me, it's the sound of the song that I really love. It's such an iconic lead to me. I've been hearing this in my head since I was a kid. And I thought it was actually kind of funny that Hydrosity was chosen, because I'm like, oh, well, that means there's going to be 2 Sonic videos in one. And I'm going to be honest here. And this is just being straight up. There's going to be, and I know it's going to happen, there's going to be returning games on these Vibes series, because these games are iconic. And I feel like sometimes you just can't talk about certain things without mentioning certain games. And Sonic, I've noticing something. I've noticed that in all my ideas for future Vibes episodes that I have ready to go, a lot of Sonic songs can go in there. Like, Sonic has Vibes down. They go to so many levels, stages, areas that I feel like we're going to see Sonic a lot in these videos. And that's okay. You know, I think it's pretty much agreed upon, regardless of the like first generation of Sonic and where it's currently at. The music is just something else, man. Something else. And I just really wanted to give its praise, because this was one of the reasons I decided to. Here, let me go a little deeper into this. Not only is it one of the reasons I decided this song to do this episode, but to do this series. So when I was thinking of like stuff, here's how this whole thing came to be. Just like a little side lore here. I was trying to incorporate a way to do a series where I can talk about songs that I know. And well, pretty much that was a premise. And then it just went into, oh, you know, what about this song? And then it went into, oh, what about, oh, you know, this actually, I've noticed there's like a lot of theming here. And then it turned into like the Vibes thing, and then it turned into different like areas. So this song right here was one of the determining factors to start the Vibe series. So thank you, Aquatic Ruin Zone, for being such an amazing, incredible song that I will hold dearly since I was a kid. And now we get to hear 2 more songs that do the very same thing to me. Can you believe it? We finally made it. We are finally speaking about Ape Escape. For those that don't know, in many videos on this channel, I have discussed Ape Escape and its influence and its soundtrack. It's one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, like top 5 soundtracks ever. And for those that have been watching my channel for a while, you're probably like, oh wow, like he's finally talking about it. And again, this was one of the reasons why I wanted to start talking about songs that I know and stuff that inspired me. Coral Cave, first of all, the whole soundtrack by Soichi Terada is just wow. And it was hard to choose even like an aquatic theme, because there's so many. The thing about Ape Escape is you go through different sections of time, future, past, whatever, and not only time, but different parts of the world. So as you can see just from that, the variety of sounds. Coral Cave is a song that I've been listening to since I was like 10 years old, man. And the thing about this one, actually seeing the screenshot's funny because those hammerhead sharks used to scare me. At the very beginning of the level, you see these sharks in the water, and you have to be in that water too, so you can see how that goes. And it also has a very funny section where you're fighting like a little mini boss in like a submarine thing. But anyways, so yes, my bias towards Ape Escape is crazy. And actually, if you want to get really deep into this whole thing, you wouldn't even be seeing me if it wasn't for Ape Escape. Ape Escape was kind of one of the reasons I even started the Auditorium. And what I mean by that is, throughout my life, I've always had like phases of hearing soundtracks, and then this recent, it was like 2021, but I was hearing Ape Escape again, Spotify, just hearing the album. And then I thought to myself, like, I wonder if anyone's like reacted to it or seen it or heard the music. I want to share the music, talk to other people about Ape Escape music, and no one has. And then I got the idea, oh, what about like songs I haven't heard? And here we are. So this game is a huge part of my life, and it's just so iconic for many reasons, right? It was the first game to require a DualShock controller. That was pretty cool and innovative. I remember losing my mind at that. Using the Skyflyer, using the analog stick. But the music, dude. Let's talk about this. Coral Cave has one of the most incredible like drum and bass beats. The main lead you hear sounds like it's crying, and it just sounds beautiful and serene. But the thing about this song that I really, really enjoy is you get this kind of like long intro, like 20 seconds or something, and then the main part kicks in. And then later, once the song has been established, the bass comes in. The bass comes in very late. You don't hear that too often, but it's just, percussion, get the intro. You can feel the song growing and, intensifying. But then when the bass kicks in, oh man. Boom, 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 doo-doo, doo-doo, da-na-na-na. But here's the thing about Ape Escape that even goes beyond. I'm going to talk a lot about Ape Escape, dude. Beyond. So, a little known fact is this. Okay, so the whole soundtrack can be dynamic if you want it to be. There is there's a button that allows Spike, our character, to sneak. He kind of crawls, goes into a prone position, and this is like it. He can, because the whole point is to, catch apes and sneak up on them. There's a lot of stealth. You can alert them, but it's a lot easier if you just like sneak up on them. When you go into sneak mode, the song changes, and now the songs go into this sort of bliss of audio landscape. And typically they remove the drums from the song, so you hear just like the main melody and like the bass, which is such a cool thing. It's such a cool thing, and not a lot of games do that. And what makes me extremely happy is I just recently found out, like 10 days ago or something, that someone on YouTube, bless their heart, I forgot who it was, but they uploaded the entire soundtrack with the sneaking versions, so you can hear everything. It's so good. Anyways, Coral Cave, Ape Escape, one of the absolute no-brainer reasons why this video exists, why this channel exists. And we're talking, one of the main factors to my love for video game music is right here. So it feels nice to talk about it. PlayStation had some gems. But speaking of the PlayStation, we're now going to be talking about a song that is absolutely the peak Aquatic theme for me, and very similar to what I'm about to say, or what I just said about this one. So let us move on to that. We finally made it. Can you believe it? Bloody Roar 2. I can't believe I'm talking about Bloody Roar 2 in a YouTube video. I feel so... I can retire now. Very similar to Ape Escape. Two games that I always bring up, and I can finally talk about them both back to back. Oh, Bloody Roar 2, for those that do not know, is my favorite soundtrack of all time. I get that question a lot. This is it. I'm going to elaborate quite a bit in this video, but first of all, this is Bloody Roar 2, The Aquarium, a stage theme, as you can see. So crazy seeing that here. Anyways, so let's get to the logistics out of the way. Bloody Roar 2 was known as two different games. It was the New Breed in the West and Bringer of the New Age in the East. It was also briefly in like arcades for a while. It was like one of the, I'm assuming one of the last like standing arcade cabs, but it's mostly known for its console version. So the reason, first of all, why it's my favorite soundtrack, before I even talk about this song, the reason it's my favorite soundtrack is many reasons. I can make a whole video on Bloody Roar 2, but basically it's two soundtracks. The aforementioned arcade mode is a series of songs that are specifically and only stage and arena based, just like the song we're listening to now, Aquarium. So it's an aquarium, right? That's why it's called Aquarium, playing here. And that soundtrack is all electronic, jungle, drum and bass, very soothing, cool stuff. So many cool songs, every song. But the Dome song is incredible, Aquarium is incredible, The Beach is incredible, The Room, The Laboratory, all these songs sound so fitting for their area that it's insane. It paints beautiful pictures, you know. And then there's the console soundtrack. You can, by the way, you can switch at any time in the options, and the console version, that's an entirely different soundtrack. Those are character themes. And now we have something describing the characters. And let me tell you, no bias, those songs represent those characters very well if you play the story mode. So, and then those songs are all very rock, Japanese rock, metal, guitars, you know, so it's like a totally different vibe. So you have two big soundtracks in one little game. And I just recently found out, just very, very recently, that Jun Kachiwara, the guitarist for Bloody Roar 2, which was one of the reasons I started to play guitar, also did stuff for King of Fighters, which is probably why I love King of Fighters stuff now, because of that. Anyways, this song, you might be asking yourself, where have I heard this before? And that's here. I've used it as background music many times, and I will continue to do so. The Aquarium theme, as you can see, it's this tiny little arena, little dome with it's a square arena with a little dome around it and the checkerboard floor. To me, this is the epitome of an aquatic theme. It has everything we've heard so far throughout the video encompassed in one. So we have, you know, what makes up the DNA of an aquatic song. We have like the long synths. We have those very iconic leads, this kind of reverb thing. It's not doing too much. They're very simple, not overly complex. It's memorable. It sounds amazing. And of course, the bass. Every single element to this song is incredible. The percussion sounds amazing. It sounds so ahead of its time too. The chords are unbelievable, but also it's less is more too. There's only 3 chords in the whole song, and most of the song, you only hear 2 chords going back to back. And then in the chorus, you hear the 3rd one. So less is more. The lead is amazing. It reminds me of like the Terminator theme for some reason. Not the theme, but like the way the Terminator theme sounds. Like the same kind of setting on the keyboard. And I don't know, man. It's my favorite OST. I can't, like, it feels like a weight off my shoulders to finally be able to show it off and have this beautiful game that is gone to time. It's never coming back, unfortunately. And it's just so underrated that it's crazy. It's crazy. You go to any Bloody Roar 2 video on YouTube, which is so rare, guess what people are talking about in the comments? The soundtrack. It's sick. It's amazing. And here's what's even a little more wild for me. is I've only experienced 2, and this is, to my knowledge, the most popular game. So meaning I haven't heard anything from 1, 3, 4, Primal Fury, all that. So the idea, and this actually goes for Ape Escape as well. I haven't heard Ape Escape 2 or 3. So for both of those games, there's still songs out there that I haven't heard. And that's super exciting to me because of my huge favoritism towards them. I just think that it's really special to me that we've almost come full circle in a way, you know? It's, grew up with this game, I've always loved it, had no one to talk to about it, and here I am talking to you guys who are actively listening to me. When you could have clicked off a long time ago because I'm just rambling. But this and the last 2 songs, these are why I'm here. This is why the channel is where it's at, because this shaped me and will always hold a special place for me. So of course it was like a no-brainer. This was and is to me the most quintessential, not only soundtrack, but aquatic theme. So that is the Aquarium from Bloody Roar 2. And do not fret, there will be many chances for me to talk about Ape Escape and Bloody Roar in future games or future videos. Trust me on that. Trust me on that. So that is it. So that is my list. I hope you had fun and reliving stuff and hearing new stuff. It's what it's all about here. And thank you for listening to me gush about like my childhood and stuff, because usually it's the other way around. I experience your guys' childhood. Now you get to hear what is making Jesse. And I'm glad I got to expand more and talk about stuff that wasn't absolutely related to the topic, but is now in the vibe. And now you can kind of understand that. Which, by the way, I wanted to give a shout out to someone wanted to see Crossing Those Hills on here from Final Fantasy IX. And if you've heard that song, you can kind of understand how it can go in a video like this. It didn't get chosen in the vote, but I respect them for putting it in there because it makes sense. Like, they understood the vision. But speaking of the vision, I'm currently working on VGM Vibes 4. You guys seem to like these videos, and that has already been chosen by my patrons, and that is going to be castles. So now that you know what you know, don't just think, oh, castle stage. Think, what would a castle sound like? What is the vibe of a castle? So I hope to see you in that video whenever that comes. And that's it. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. And I could talk about video game music all day. It's a lot different from reacting to it. I can just kind of geek out on it. And thank you for all your suggestions. And let me know your favorite aquatic themes and all that good stuff. So I will see you in VGM Vibes 4 when we will be talking about castles. My name is Jesse in the Auditorium. Thanks to all these people here. Peace.